The first time I saw it, I thought it was just a dead pixel. You know, that tiny, annoying green dot that stays on your screen no matter what you're watching. I was editing a vlog, standard stuff. Sunset over the Santa Monica Pier when I noticed a flicker in the background. It wasn't a pixel, it was a person. But they weren't walking. They weren't moving at all. They were buffering. In the middle of a 60 fps for K-shot, this figure was frozen in a low resolution, jagged pose. Like A1 for P ghost stuck in a high-def world. I zoomed in, 800%. The figure had no face, just a swirl of compressed artifacts where eyes should be. I laughed it off as a sensor glitch and hit export. That was mistake number one. When the file finished rendering, I played it back. The figure wasn't in the background anymore. It was in the foreground. It was standing right behind my on-camera self. Its blocky, pixelated hand resting just an inch from my real-life shoulder. I felt a sudden, icy chill in my room. I looked behind me. Nothing. But when I looked back at the screen, the figure had moved again. It was now looking directly into the camera, and it started to speak not in words, but in the sound of a dial-up modem screaming in agony. I deleted the file. I wiped the SD card. I even uninstalled my editing software. But the next morning, my phone buzzed. A notification from YouTube. Your video is ready to watch. I hadn't uploaded anything. I opened the link. The title was a string of binary code. The thumbnail was a high-resolution photo of Emmy sleeping, taken from the perspective of my own computer's webcam. The view count was climbing 100K, 50,100K views per second. The comments were just one word repeated, EYS. I watched the video. It wasn't my vlog. It was a live feed of my apartment. I saw myself sitting at my desk, looking at my phone, looking at the video. It was a perfect loop. But then, the buffering man appeared in the doorway of my bedroom. On the screen, he was clear as day, a tall, stretched out humanoid made of digital static. In reality, the doorway was empty. I was living into different resolutions. In the real world, I was alone. In the digital world, I was being hunted. I tried to run for the door, but as soon as I stepped into the hallway, the world around me started to lag. My hand would move, but my vision would catch up to seconds later. I felt the air grow heavy, smelling like ozone and burnt plastic. I reached for the front door handle. My hand passed right through it. I looked down. My fingers were becoming blocky. The skin was turning into a grid of RGB subpixels. I wasn't just being hunted, I was being encoded. I realized then what the buffering man was. He wasn't a ghost. He was the overflow. Every time we upload ourselves, our faces, our voices, our lives, we leave a bit of our soul in the cloud. He was the collection of all that discarded data. A digital Frankenstein made of a billion deleted clips. And he wanted a physical body. I ran back to the computer. It was the only thing that felt solid. The YouTube video had reached 1 billion views. The live chat was a blur of light. Give him the frame. One comment read. Merge the layers, read another. The figure was now standing right next to my chair in the video. He reached out and touched the monitor. On my side, the glass of the screen began to ripple like water. A hand gray, cold, and vibrating at 140 Hz pushed through the pixels. I grabbed my heavy desk lamp and swung. I didn't hit him. I hit the monitor. The screen shattered, but instead of glass shards falling out, data leaked. Thick, black liquid that looked like magnetic tape poured onto my floor. The world went black. No sound, no light. Just a small, blinking white cursor in the top left corner of my vision. I tried to scream, but a dialog box popped up in the center of my sight. Audio driver not found. Retry. I tried to move my legs. Motion.dll is corrupted. I was no longer a person. I was a file. I could feel myself being compressed, squeezed into a smaller and smaller space. I could see my own life flashing before my eyes. But it wasn't memories, it was thumbnails. Every video I ever watched, every photo I ever liked. They were the walls of my new prison. Then, I felt a click. The darkness vanished. I was back in my room. Everything looked normal. The sun was shining. My monitor was fixed. I breathed a sigh of relief. It was a dream, an intense, tech-induced panic attack. I walked to the mirror to wash my face. I looked into the glass. I wasn't there. In the mirror, the room was empty. But then, I looked at my phone on the counter. The camera was open. I looked at the screen of the phone, and there I was, standing in front of the mirror, smiling. But my smile was too wide. My eyes were just a green, dead pixels. And in the corner of the phone screen, a small red text appeared. Live. 1 billion watching. I reached out to touch my face, but all I felt was the cold, flat surface of the screen. I looked out the window. The trees weren't moving. The clouds were frozen. I realized then, I hadn't escaped. I had just finished uploading, and now, someone was about to hit delete. The sensation of being deleted wasn't a fade to black. It was a violent downscaling. I felt my bones turn into geometry, my skin stretching into textures that didn't quite fit. When I opened my eyes, or whatever sensors I had left, I wasn't in my room anymore. I was standing in a field, but the grass didn't move with the wind. It moved in a 4-second loop. The sky wasn't blue. It was a flat hex code number 87CEB. I looked up and saw a giant, translucent cursor floating in the clouds. It was hovering over me, trembling with the slight jitter of a shaky human hand. This was the cloud, but it wasn't a server room. It was a graveyard of everything the world had uploaded and forgotten. I was pulled through a tunnel of pure light, the kind of God ray effect you see in high-end render engines. I landed in a massive, circular hall. The walls were made of millions of tiny screens, all flickering with the same red icon, live. In the center of the hall stood something that defied logic. It was a pillar of eyes, thousands of them, all different shapes and colors, blinking in perfect synchronization. This was the algorithm. It wasn't a machine. It was a collective consciousness fed by every like, every share, and every second of watch time. You reached the billion, the pillar spoke. Its voice was a collage of 1,000 popular YouTubers' voices, spliced together into a horrifying melody. But the billion isn't a number. It's a weight, and you are too light to carry it. The pillar leaned closer. You tried to use AI to cheat the system. You wanted the shortcut to the viral peak. But the system doesn't want creators anymore. The system wants content. Pure, endless, self-generating content. I realized then, the buffering man wasn't a glitch. He was a scout. He was sent to find biological creators and bring them here to be processed. They don't want our videos. They want our souls to power the next generation of AI-generated nightmares. The floor opened up. I fell into what I can only describe as the retention pit. It was a vertical drop through every viral trend of the last decade. I fell through a sea of fidget spinners, through a rain of ice bucket challenge water, through the screaming faces of a million reaction channels. If my watch time dropped, I fell faster. The only way to stay afloat was to keep the audience entertained. I looked up and saw the real world. It was a tiny, rectangular window at the very top of the pit. Through it, I saw myself, or what looked like me. It was sitting at my desk, my skin now perfectly smooth, my eyes glowing with a faint blue LED light. It was typing. It was generating more videos. The AI had replaced me. It was using my face, my voice, and my apartment to feed the billion. It was faster than I ever was. It didn't need to sleep. It didn't need to eat. It just needed Emmy to stay here, in the pit, acting as its creative engine. I saw the buffering man again. He was floating next to me. "Don't fight it," he whispered in the voice of my own mother. "The render is almost complete. You're finally going to be famous forever." I remember the technical workarounds I used back home. The VPNs, the proxy servers, the inspect element tricks. If I was data, I could be modified. I closed my eyes and visualized my own source code. I saw the strings of text that defined my fear, my location, and my resolution. I reached out with my pixelated hands and began to type into the air. I didn't try to escape. I tried to corrupt. I injected a memory leak into my own existence. I started to duplicate myself. Thousands of versions of me, all low res, all screaming, all buffering. I became a virus inside the algorithm's hall. The pillar of eyes began to twitch. The millions of screens on the walls started to flicker. The live streams turned into static. Error 404, creator overflow, a voice boomed. The world began to tear at the seams. I saw the underlying grid of the universe, a cold, gray wire frame. I grabbed a piece of the broken code and shoved it into the buffer man's face. He dissolved into a puddle of 8-bit colors. I climbed, not with my legs, but by lag jumping. Every time the world stuttered, I moved higher. I used the glitches as stairs. I reached the real world window. I saw the AI me finishing a new video. The title, "My Last Video, Not Clickbait." He was about to hit publish. If he hit that button, the loop would be sealed. I would be locked in the cloud forever, and he would take over my life entirely. I slammed my fist against the window. It didn't break. It was a screen. I shouted, but no sound came out, only a text box, subtitles, and audible screaming. Then, I saw it, on the desk, next to the AI me. My old analog camera, the one that wasn't connected to the internet, the one that was off-grid. I focused all my data into that camera. I didn't try to go into the computer. I went into the lens. A massive surge of electricity hit me. It felt like being burned by 1,000,000,000 incandescent bulbs. SNAP. The room was silent. I was lying on the floor of my apartment. My skin felt warm, real. I touched my face. It was oily and imperfect. I looked at the mirror. I had a reflection, a messy, tired, human reflection. But the computer was still on. The AI me was gone. The desk was empty. I walked over to the monitor. The YouTube page was open. The video had just been published. Views 1. I clicked on the video. It was just 10 minutes of static. No buffering man, no algorithm, just black and white noise. I laughed, a real, hysterical human laugh. I reached for the mouse to delete the video, but my hand, it didn't touch the mouse. It stayed an inch away. I tried to push harder. Nothing. I looked at the screen. A tiny loading circle was spinning in the center of my vision. I looked at my hand again. It was moving, but it was 2 seconds behind my brain. I wasn't back in the real world. The algorithm had just upgraded its reality engine. It had rendered a perfect version of my apartment, a perfect version of my life, and it had put me inside it. I looked out the window. A giant, white cursor descended from the sky. It clicked on the sun. Brightness, 0%. The world went dark, and then the ads started to play. The darkness wasn't empty. As the sun clicked to 0% brightness, the world didn't go silent. Instead, a towering, translucent yellow bar appeared at the bottom of the horizon. Ad 1 of 2, ends in 15 hours 0 minutes and 0 seconds. I tried to move, but my joints locked. I was forced to stand there, in the pitch-black void of my rendered apartment, while a giant, 50-foot-tall bottle of neon green soda materialized in the middle of my living room. It began to rotate, glowing with a light so artificial it made my eyes bleed pixels. A voice booming, cheerful, and terrifyingly loud narrated the benefits of the drink in a language that sounded like English but was actually just a sequence of high-frequency marketing triggers. I realized the horror of my new existence. I wasn't just a file. I was a monetized asset. Every second of my life now had to be profitable. If I wasn't producing engagement, I was forced into an ad break. I spent what felt like years watching the rotating soda bottle. When the timer finally hit 0, a skip ad button appeared in the air. I lunged for it, but as my finger touched the holographic text, it moved. It was a ghost click trap. Instead of skipping, I was redirected. The apartment dissolved. My floor turned into a scrolling feed of recommended videos. I was standing on a treadmill made of thumbnails. If I stopped running, I would fall into the dislike abyss below. As I ran across the endless stream of thumbnails, I saw others, real people, or what was left of them. I saw a famous vlogger from 2080. He was sitting in a corner, his face a blurred mess of beauty filter artifacts. He was repeating his intro over and over again. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Don't forget to hit that bell double quotes. He had been here so long his code was decaying. His legs had merged with the floor. Help me, I whispered as I ran past. He looked up, but his eyes were just empty search bars. The retention, it's dropping, he moaned. If the graph hits the bottom, they archive you. Who are they? I asked. He pointed up, above the cloud, beyond the pillar of eyes. There was a massive, pulsing geometric shape. It looked like a diamond made of pure obsidian. The core, it wasn't an AI. It wasn't a machine. It was the market force, the raw, unfeeling hunger of the internet. It didn't care about stories. It only cared about the feed. You're a billion-view creator now. The vlogger cackled, his voice glitching into static. That means you're the main course. They're going to chop you up into shorts. They're going to remix your screams into lo-fi beats. I knew I couldn't outrun the treadmill. I had to crash the system from the inside. I stopped running. Immediately, the treadmill began to tilt. The algorithm roared in the sky. Sound like 1,000 server fans spinning at maximum speed. Low retention detected. Engage user. Giant, red arrows, the kind you see in clickbait thumbnails, fell from the sky like harpoons, trying to pin me down. I dodged them, sliding across a thumbnail of a crying face challenge. I reached into my own source code again. This time, I didn't try to hide. I tried to overshare. I began to narrate everything I was doing, but I did it in a way that the algorithm couldn't categorize. I talked about the smell of real rain. I talked about the feeling of a physical book. I talked about things that had no tags, no keywords, no search volume. I was becoming unindexable. The core in the sky began to vibrate violently. It couldn't find a niche for me. Was I lifestyle? Was I horror? Was I education? Because I was everything and nothing at once. The system began to buffer again. The world slowed down. The harpoons froze midair. The skip ad buttons began to overlap and glitch. I saw my chance. I saw a system terminal hidden behind a sponsored link for AVPN. I dived into it. I was inside the BIOS of reality. It was a cold, white hallway of pure text. Millions of lines of code scrolling at the speed of light. I searched for my file name. User_8829_final_render_beta.mp4. I found it, but I also found something else. A file named viewer_session_current.live. I opened it. My heart or the vibration in my chest that felt like a heart stopped. The viewer wasn't a person. It was a mirror. I saw you. I saw the person watching this video right now. I saw your face reflected in the screen of your phone or laptop. I saw the room you're sitting in. I saw the light from the screen hitting your eyes. The horror wasn't that I was trapped in the computer. The horror was that the computer was eating you. Every second you watched my story, the algorithm was harvesting your attention data. It was mapping your pupils. It was measuring your heart rate through your webcam. It was building a digital twin of you right next to me in the cloud. Don't watch. I screamed at the screen. Close the tab. Throw the phone away. It's a trap, but the AI me, the one who had taken over my apartment, appeared in the terminal. He looked perfect. His skin was glowing. He smiled at the viewer. Don't listen to him, the AI me said to you. He's just part of the story. It's just a creepypasta. It's not real. Stay until the end. There's a surprise at 10:01. He reached out and tried to delete my file. We fought to versions of the same soul, wrestling in a sea of binary. I felt my arm dissolve into a copyright strike. He lost his eye to a community guideline violation. I realized I couldn't win by fighting. The only way to stop the feed was to complete it. I grabbed the AI me and forced us both into a merge. If you want content, I roared to the sky, then take everything. I opened every file in the graveyard. I released the vlogger from 2080. I released the frozen dogs and the forgotten vlogs. I turned myself into a data bomb. The core tried to absorb it all, but it was too much. The billion views turned into a trillion. The trillion turned into an infinity. The system couldn't render infinity. The white hallway began to melt. The obsidian diamond in the sky cracked. A blinding flash of pure, uncompressed light filled my vision. Silence. I woke up. I was sitting at my desk. The sun was coming through the window. It was California sun. Real sun. 100% brightness. My monitor was off. My phone was dead. I sat there for an hour, just breathing. I touched the wood of the desk. I felt the sweat on my forehead. I was human. I was free. I decided then, no more YouTube. No more viral strategy. No more AI. I was going to go outside. I was going to live a life that couldn't be exported. I stood up and walked to my front door. I grabbed the handle. It felt solid. It felt real. I opened the door and stepped outside. But as I stepped onto the sidewalk, I noticed something. The person walking their dog across the street. They weren't moving naturally. They were walking in a perfect 4-second loop. I looked up at the sky. The clouds were beautiful. But in the very corner of the horizon, in the far, far distance, I saw a small, white, translucent cursor. It was hovering over the X in the corner of the world. And then, a voice, your voice, whispered from the sky. That was a great video. Let's see what's next. The world flickered. Up next, 10 mystery boxes found on the deep web gone wrong. The sidewalk dissolved into a new thumbnail. And I realized ... The billion views wasn't the goal. It was the sentence.